What does the PlayStation 1 and 2 have that the PlayStation 3, 4, and probably 5 never will? Suikoden games. I have such mixed feelings about this video. The latest main entry in the series, Suikoden 5, was released way back in 2006, meaning we've now been waiting 14 years for the sequel. That hurts a lot. On July 27th of this year, Suikoden fans finally caught a break when a veteran team of game designers led by original Suikoden director and writer Yoshitaka Murayama announced a Kickstarter for a spiritual successor to Suikoden called Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. As ecstatic as I am about this news, I think the time has finally come to ask the question I've been dreading to confront all these years. Is Suikoden dead? Before I go any further, I just want to say to everyone who's subscribed to me, thank you so much. As a tiny channel trying to grow into something bigger, every little bit helps a lot, and I really appreciate your support. For those of you who may not be as familiar with the games as some of us are, Suikoden, or Genso Suikoden as it's called in Japan, is a series of JRPGs for PlayStation consoles, released between 1995 and 2006, with spin-off titles for handheld consoles appearing in 2008 and 2012. The series takes its name from the 14th century Chinese novel Shui Hu Juan, often translated as the Water Margin or the Outlaws of the Marsh. Shui Hu Juan is one of the pillars of classic Chinese literature, often mentioned in the same breath as Sango Yeni, or Romans of the Three Kingdoms. That said, Suikoden is only very loosely based on the book, borrowing the core concept of 108 heroes brought together by fate to fight against tyranny and injustice, and using it as a springboard to create something unique and remarkable. Being Japanese RPGs, the Suikoden games share a lot of traits with Final Fantasy and other titles in the same genre, such as leveling up characters, equipping them with weapons, armor, and magic, and fighting monsters in turn-based random encounters. But Suikoden also has many iconic features that makes it stand out from other RPGs. A huge roster of over 100 characters, each with their own special requirements for recruitment, a stronghold for you to manage that expands and adds new features as your army grows, large-scale army battles that decide the fate of nations, a unique magic system centered on the 27 true runes which make up the foundation of the universe. That said, there's really one key factor that explains how the series built such a strong fan following. Unlike RPG series like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, where each installment takes place on a new world, the main Suikoden games are all set in the same shared world. Each new game expanded on what came before, showing us new nations and continents and revealing more of the world's rich, interconnected history. Characters from previous games would show up in the sequels, and there'd be all these references to familiar locations and events. The world's history was literally shaped by the conflicts you took part in, so there was a real sense of ownership and investment for the fans. That's why people love Suikoden so much. It reminds me a lot of being a fan of a series of epic fantasy novels like The Wheel of Time or A Song of Ice and Fire, where the fans put so much love and commitment into the flowering of this fictional world, in an experience that's shared between creators and fans. Suikoden's always had a cult following. There's a very passionate fanbase out there that's been starved for attention for 14 years, and it shows. Take a look at some of these comments I found on the Eiyuden Chronicle Kickstarter page. I've been waiting for the Suikoden series to continue since I don't know when. I even said I'm only going to marry when Suikoden 6 happens. I got married last March to another die-hard Suikoden fan, whom I met 7 years ago because of, guess what, Suikoden. Now we're both backing this project. 10 years ago, on my first date with my husband, we talked about video games, and suddenly we had this connection to the Suikoden series. That day, we talked till 3 AM in the morning about Suikoden. Thank God Murayama sensei made a comeback. Suikoden 2 was the one that truly got me absorbed. I was 17 back then and I'm almost 38 now. This brought me to tears. Oh man, this one could be me. Suikoden was such a huge series for me growing up. I even have the Soul Eater rune tattooed on my chest above my heart in memory of those I have lost on my journey who have made me stronger. Wow, I get emotional seeing this shit. Don't tell me games don't mean anything. Judging by the concept art and the way the characters and setting are described, Eiyuden Chronicle is giving up some massive vibes of being a spiritual remake of Suikoden 2. Suikoden 2 is to Suiko fans what Final Fantasy VII is to Final Fantasy fans. It is by far the most loved game in the series, with many fans holding it up as one of the greatest JRPGs of all time. And with good reason. The game's story is as engaging as it is shocking. The characters are unforgettable, and the themes of friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice stay with you forever. With Eiyuden Chronicle, expect Murayama and his team to attempt to recapture that same magic. If they can pull it off, expect an engrossing story full of twists and turns, a huge cast of characters to recruit, a fortress town to restore and expand as you play through the game, turn-based combat with an interesting magic system, massive army battles, tons of minigames and diversions like trading, cooking, fishing, and gambling, and a grand adventure in a vast, vibrant world that leaves us wanting more. As giddy with excitement as I am to see Eiyuden Chronicle announced and doing so well on Kickstarter, that excitement is mixed with a strong feeling of unease. What's gonna happen with Suikoden? Will we ever see Suikoden 6? Or is this the proverbial death knell? The final nail in the coffin? The Suikoden IP is held by Konami, and Konami isn't interested in making RPGs anymore. The Suikoden team was disbanded in 2012 following a lukewarm reception to Suikoden: The Woven Web of a Century, a spin-off title for the PlayStation Portable released only in Japan. In 2015, Konami confirmed that development of the Suikoden series had halted, and since then, we've had no solid intel pointing towards the emergence of a true sequel. Fans love to bash Konami for being too stupid to see the potential in Suikoden and some of their other neglected IPs. But the sad truth is that Konami's neglect doesn't spring from stupidity. They're actually making rational investment decisions. As loud as us fans can get sometimes, there just isn't much incentive for Konami to reform the Suikoden team. Despite its cult following, Suikoden was never really a huge commercial success. The Suikoden games were all great RPGs, but they never had the mass market appeal of the Final Fantasy games. And when Suikoden 5's sales numbers tanked in 2006, Konami pretty much threw in the towel. I hate to say it, but they're not wrong. Sure, Eiyuden Chronicle is doing great on Kickstarter, but let's be realistic. As I write this script, with 16 days to go, we have just shy of 30,000 backers on Kickstarter. That's damn impressive, and certainly well above what the creators were asking for. But these aren't great sales numbers for a game. Obviously, they're hoping to sell a lot more copies when the game releases in 2022. And I do think the game can do well. In fact, nothing would make me happier than to see this game smash our expectations and break all sorts of sales records. But let's not kid ourselves here. Getting 30,000 diehard fans to back your project does not necessarily translate into the kind of financial success that would make Konami sit up and listen. As painful as it is to admit, I do think Suikoden is dead. Konami might push out a crap MOBA spin-off stuffed with microtransactions here and there, but I don't see this company plowing resources into something as honest as a sprawling, content-filled JRPG. Don't get me wrong, a spiritual successor is great, and I know Murayama and his team have it in them to put out something magical. But it just won't be Suikoden, you know? The Suikoden series is more than just a string of great RPGs. It's a world filled with stories, places, and characters that really resonated with fans. It's a world filled with compelling mysteries and uncharted territories to explore. It was just so cool to experience the world of Suikoden unfolding with each new entry. All the callbacks, references, and cameos. Seeing George in his prime, no pun intended, in Suikoden 5. The hype surrounding Hikusok and the threat posed by Harmonia. Distant lands mentioned in passing with the promise that one day we might get to explore them ourselves. This series has so much damn potential and so much investment from the fans, and a spiritual successor can't replace that. I have so many memories of these games and so much passion for its shared world, and it breaks my heart to think that the series I love so much might not have a future. Eiyuden Chronicle will never replace Suikoden, but does that mean I won't support it? Hell no. We may never get another Suikoden game, but Murayama and his team are trying to get something off the ground that could grow into an amazing new IP in their hands. This is our chance to make our voices heard. If you're a fan of Suikoden, if you're a fan of JRPGs, hell, if you're someone who loves to see video games in the hands of true creators, go support Eiyuden Chronicle on Kickstarter. Just because the campaign's funded well beyond the original goal doesn't mean the fight is over. There's still stretch goals to fulfill, and it's pretty clear that the team has their sights set on something higher. I mean, the Fortress Town was a stretch goal. Who could imagine a Suikoden clone without a Fortress Town? The more funding we can raise for this team, the more freedom they'll have in realizing their vision of a true successor to Suikoden. That said, I am managing my expectations. There's just so much that can go wrong with Kickstarter. And after seeing what a massive disappointment Bloodstained Ritual of the Night was, I'm worried. I'm honestly stumped at how positive a reception Bloodstained got from the fans, given how subpar its game design was for a Castlevania game. But I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed. Maybe Murayama's team can learn from Iga's mistakes? We might never get a Suikoden 6, but at least we still have the old games. If you've never played any of the Suikoden games, do yourself a favor and give them a try. My personal favorites are Suikoden 2 and 5, but they're all good games. Just maybe don't start with Suikoden 4, yeah? Thank you so much for watching. Suikoden may be dead, but this channel still lives. And if you like my content and you want to help me make more, if you could give me a thumbs up or leave me a quick comment, that would be a huge help for me. Until next time, stay safe.